And I'd like to start with a PowerPoint because it will lead you into my latest research and what I'm doing on a number of levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my PowerPoint off. And what we've got here is, as you know, it's time for disclosure. Disclosure from the ground up really is how I believe it's going to happen. And this is also about us as a species waking up. So I think it's really, really important now for those that know this is a reality to come out of the space closet, as I call it, because now it's time. And one of the things that is really important to me, and I want people to see, is that from my own organisation, which is CERN, the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network, and in the last few years, I've connected with another group of wonderful individuals, not only to support Australia and the globe as best I can, but through another way of introducing this as a reality, showing how we can understand this through the quantum hologram. And this is, for me, what needs to happen if we want mainstream to take notice of us. And one of our executive director is Dr. Rudy Shield. And what he's saying here is very important. It's saying we're living in an exciting world where advances in space exploration and astrophysics are matched by the wonder of the UFO sightings and deeper human inner space. But because of the ethereal nature of the data, these developments are not studied by prestigious universities because of their nature. And this is the need that we have to extend the approach to larger statistical base with rigorous statistical techniques to expand the discussion. And what we're really doing through our many surveys, and we've already had information from over 2,000 individuals, we're exploring it from beings are actually the ones most commonly seen, not the greys, for example. 64% saw UFOs and 65.71% had no abduction. Really, really important. So we've got 35% had near-death experiences, 17% expanded consciousness, 75% the ETs hadn't hurt them. They felt, 84% felt a sense of mission. 82% believed there was a connection between ETs and the spirit world, pre-birth, post-death. 15% experienced soul swapping. So we're taking this into very much the area now of understanding on this experience, coming in as a skeptic. He wrote the book Abduction and Passport to the Cosmos. And what he's saying here to me is profound. Extraterrestrial contact reality is literally physically happening. It's also a kind of psychological, spiritual experience occurring and originating perhaps in another dimension. The phenomena stretches us, or it asks us to open to realities that are not simply the literal physical world, but to extend the possibility that there are other unseen realities from which our consciousness, our, if you will, learning processes over the past several hundred years have closed us off. And that is the crux of it. The encounter experience, he believes, is reanimating our senses. And we need a new psychological model. And this is what I talk about in both my books, but primarily my second book, The New Human. We need a new psychological model because what we seem to have no place for, he says, and we've lost the place for, is phenomena that can begin in the unseen realm and cross over and manifest and show up in our literal physical world, whereby we might know the spirit world, which has made the alien phenomena so hard to believe. So let's look at how we need to move into that. Ufology, nuts and bolts evidence, very, very important, of course, which is photographs, videos of spacecraft, which we've just seen, extraterrestrial forms, sightings by witnesses, such as credible witnesses, such as police, pilots, implanted objects that were very well exposed by Dr. Roger Lear in the Aliens and the Scalpel, and his evidence through video footage of removing them, marks and scars which fluoresce under black ultraviolet light, whistleblower testimony, very important, military and political disclosure, missing time episodes enable us to understand something happened, magnetic changes in soil, multiple witnesses, conscious recall, and DNA, intelligent design. extraterrestrial manipulation, physical and non-physical, holographic nature, and DNA, I believe, links us to all of this out-of-body, multidimensional evidence that we hope, through organizations with free, where we have the scientists and academics now, to look at this, the surveys and the information, to see where all this links to it and understand it from a holographic quantum perspective. Out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, time distortions, missing and distorted time, healing during encounters, leaving many with healing abilities, altered and enhanced senses, heightened intelligence. And that is really important, how people find their intelligence is upgraded. Information knowledge downloads, such as advanced physics, where we've got scientists now to look at that kind of material, which we need. Heightened multidimensional senses, such as telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, past life recall, both on Earth and other planets, telekinesis, moving objects with the mind, transformative changes in perspective, holistic lifestyles are the result, and attitude. These all occur from the whole UFO encounter contact phenomena. Expressions of contact, such as the manifestation and expression of strange scripts, artwork, star languages or light languages as they're known, shamanic type of experiences, otherworldly experiences that many experience, and again, the multidimensional nature of DNA and its ET origin. So I'm going to start off with the reality through our DNA, the very, very important baseline, I believe, that is the clue to so much that is going on at the moment now. The DNA molecule is the most efficient information storage system in the entire universe. The immensity of complex coded and precisely sequenced information is staggering. The DNA evidence speaks of intelligent information-bearing design. This is Dr. Francis Crick, the co-founder of the DNA molecule, who concluded there were extraterrestrial genes in the human genome. They program the molecules, he said, so that when we reached a certain level of intelligence, we would be able to access their information, and they could therefore teach us about ourselves, how to progress. For life to form by chance is mathematically impossible. And we have it again here by a whistleblower geneticist in Lloyd Pye's wonderful book, Intervention Theory. By certain methods of DNA dating, he said in this book, in a letter, this is a whistleblower geneticist, one can tell numerous genes have been recently added to the human genome. Some of that will be the 223 genes that are a sideways insertion of genetic material that are in no other species and are all to do with higher psychological functioning. And he says this: if colleagues in my field were to say such things openly, we would be ostracized. Any work along these lines would be rejected without any form of appeal, so what can we do? And this is the problem. There is so much that we're not told. There is a very interesting link to that in terms of evidence of human genes being spliced with extraterrestrial genes, and this is Akhenaten. Two microscopic samples left by Akhenaten. On the right is the mummy of the same age. Akhenaten's bone is denser, fundamentally different to the right normal bone in another similar mummy. And as we know, many of the pharaohs said that they were sons of gods, and we have got lots of evidence now to show that many of these species that we would call extraterrestrials or were seen as gods were in fact interbreeding and also doing genetic manipulation. Here's another one with Stuart Fleischmann, assistant professor of the comparative genomics at the Swiss University, found anomalies in Akhenaten, and he says a small fragment of desiccated brain tissue. Akhenaten's DNA suggests he had a higher cranial capacity because of the need to house a larger cortex. And the gene CXPAC5 responsible for cortex growth suggests an anomaly, which is visible in the image below. Again, a completely different makeup to humans. And one of the interesting things with DNA that is telling us more and more about our origins is that they've now found a hidden code or a second code which contains information which alters how scientists read instructions in DNA and interpret mutations. They have discovered genomes that use the genetic code to write two separate languages. One is written on top of the other. These findings highlight that DNA is an incredibly powerful storage device. So what we have to look at is what else is telling us about DNA and how we are really, that is part of who we are in terms of our hybrid nature. We have to also take into account that what shuts us down or what opens us up may very well be our beliefs and how we're educated or how we're programmed. As Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about, we're not just DNA determined. Human experience and attitude alters DNA expression. So we also have to know that we can alter and change the way that we are initially born by how we're educated or how we're programmed or how we're conditioned. And that's very important in how we will understand our experiences. DNA also follows the grammar and set rules like human language. So what we're discovering is that human language interacts with living DNA, and it will actually change DNA if the proper frequencies are used. And that is why affirmations and hypnosis can have powerful effects on human bodies, because it's actually influencing the very nature of DNA and what is said to us, either both positive and negative. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going somewhere which will tell us more about how these changes happen in terms of how we're changing and evolving into a new species. But one other little point here that I think is very, very, very important, because I talked about star languages, light languages, and how these may be crucial to how we change. Words can change cactus DNA. This gentleman, Luther Burbank, who was a horticulturalist and pioneer in agricultural science, said the secret of improved plant breeding is love, and he changed the genetic structure of hundreds of plants, including fruit and vegetables, because he talked to his plants. And what he said in these experiments was, with the cactus, was he told the plants, you don't need your protective thorns, I will protect you. And gradually the useful plant emerged that was a thornless variety. So very much what we're exposed to will echo how we understand our encounters, our experience, how we interpret them with our attitude. All of this is part of how we need to understand our reality, and our conditioning and programming makes a difference to our experiences. The other important point before I get into the encounter side of this is we have got multidimensional DNA, which produces magnetized wormholes, and it transmits information from outside space-time to our consciousness. Is a biological internet. So what we're discovering is that if our DNA can actually access different areas of the universe through which information can be transmitted outside space-time and attracts this information to our consciousness, we have this link to consciousness itself, and explains everything that people worry about or find difficult to understand, which is our precognitive insights, our clairvoyance, our intuition, telepathy, past lives, spontaneous remote acts of healing, self-healing, remote influencing with weather. We are able to do this. And now we have an understanding through the quantum hologram and multidimensional DNA. So what I'm really saying here is the evidence for Homo sapiens were intelligently designed with added extraterrestrial genes to the human genome, with Akhenaten as an example. Akhenaten showing anomalous tissue samples, the whistleblower information telling us DNA has altered genes. Research demonstrating at the very least 2 levels of information streams embedded in DNA. DNA operates multidimensionally through miniature wormholes to access quantum information, explaining intuitive knowledge, such as telepathy and clairvoyance. We are programmable and can be changed through human language and also conditioning. Epigenetics demonstrates that we are conditioned and affected by our human experiences, which will also change the nature of how DNA expresses itself, and reality constructs, beliefs, attitudes to experiences. applicable to DNA of other species, not only humans, but plants also. What we send them, how we interact with plants or animals, for example. It has the ability to transform itself and affect others via its frequency. So what impact is there on human DNA via our extraterrestrial programmers and our encounters with them? I'm going to mention quite a bit about Dr. Lena Olson. She's a molecular biologist, and she has a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology. She's also an experiencer. Now, she downloaded this information about the nature of human DNA and its ability to transform, which is talking really about us and our shift in consciousness, our shift in awareness, and what's happening now in terms of us as a species. She says this about the genes. The genes have all the characteristics of genes, but on another level, they contain information of their origin with the tools to transform to a higher form. The information of the donors and their background is there, a hidden key, and like PC programmers, they hide their work. The key can be activated, and these programmers know that the person is ready to be contacted. The activated ones spread a signal to wake the others up. So we are energetic signals once we wake up. And she says, I feel they are spreading this up. So we're talking about the new human and a evolving species. She calls a quantum or letter people. And she says this, I came down to inhabit a human body as I have done many times before. This is part of her experience and why she's come out of the space closet, as I call it, and how disclosure is going to happen from the ground up, I believe. Time to come out of the space closet is for this reason, and this is why she chose to do it. She considered the mantid beings, as you see the image on your screen, which she's drawn, to be my friends, she says. This is the first time I saw them without their disguise. The guidance and help I'm receiving, I know it's important for me to stay alive, evolving, and developing my abilities. I feel great changes are coming in my lifetime. 6 months ago, she said, I had a very strange healing experience and why I am telling my story. I asked for guidance to know if I was on track and if I should come out to give me a sign. I had severe dislocation of my atlas vertebra, which was causing extreme discomfort. Spontaneously, the vertebra rotates by itself into the correct position. I can now swallow without pain. This was what I called my sign, and so I'm coming out as promised. I continue with my health treatments, workshops and retreats as long as I'm asked for help. So for her, this instant healing was confirmation it was time to come out. And because she lives in Sweden, this really is difficult as a professional scientist as she is. But it's time. She feels it's time. And these are some of the experiences that need to be explored now with the contact, with encounters, because there is such a broad range, apart from what we always saw as just the classic, encounter, or as some would see it as the abduction. This is what she's had. She's seen and experienced many different kinds of non-human intelligences and spirits. And these were, I'm going to show you in the next few slides, some of the beings she's encountered. She's had a near-death experience and many out-of-body experiences, past life recall, shamanic experiences, healing experiences, both as a healer, was healed by these non-human intelligences, an intuitive understanding of the new human upgrades she calls letter people, which are Asperger's, ADHD, dyslexia, some types of autism, as well as seen as crystals, crystal children, indigo children, children of light. There are many different names given to them. Multidimensional abilities and scientific and intuitive understanding of loading and energizing water. So I'm going to take you to some of that. Remote influencing, she could hide in plain sight and go into the mind of another and convey she was not there. She believed she controlled their awareness. She played hide and seek as a child, she told me, and she basically conveyed to the other children they couldn't see her, and they didn't. So this is one of the remote influence is one of the abilities. Telekinesis, moving objects with the mind. At a year old, she moved a huge object without help. She had past life recall. One was in Paris, where she was charged with witchcraft. She discovered it related to a witch hunt, which she found everything she experienced in a flashback in this book called The Oracle Glass, part of the protocols that happened to her. And another one was in Karnak, when she went to Karnak in Egypt, where she recalled spontaneously information which was corroborated by archaeologists. She has healing abilities, which she learned how to focus her energy using a force. And she said, I tried to put the TV on with her mind, and she basically set a fire, and she didn't try that a second time. She found she could perceive auras, and during her doctoral studies, she began to see colored hazes around people. She's had shamanic experiences with old men in her room, sending energy orbs into her body, out-of-body experiences, traveling through tunnels to other realms, and near-death experiences and instant healing, puzzling doctors. And she also got herself checked out, as many find they have a need to do, by a psychiatric unit, and she was told that the psychiatrist concluded she was one of the most stable people and rational people he'd ever met. These are some of the beings that she's interacted with. Ramtar is the one in the top corner there on the screen. It will be on the left. And he's her most recent. He told her he was keeping her safe and protected when she came out with her story, and the connection's a long-standing one. Then she went in, the other beings are the Andromeda Galaxy, Gold Monk Buddha being, fairy beings, water spirit, Native American beings, shadow people, blue orbs, water spirits, small brown flat skull beings, eagle men, avatar, human and solid, both conscious interactions on a train, cat beings, leopard beings during a healing, manted beings, and other spirits. And these are the 12 old guys that she sees and that guide her and teach her in many kinds of ways, with pictures, energy orbs, letting me experience different tests, and also helping her solve problems. They were the ones, she said, that helped me understand. I have conversations with them when I'm awake in meditation. This one is a 2.5 meter amphibian, and her healing of an old knee injury from a football damage at 16. A bright light in her bedroom, a hole in the wall with a large room like a laboratory, and people in white lab coats and other beings she experienced. Box-like object like an aquarium from this room moved over the lower part of her legs and covered her on all sides. Inside this energy box contained a blue energy light. It was so strong it radiated and filled with white silvery smoke, and there was a green hand with large scales on the back of the arm, 5 green fingers, but much longer than human. Nails like claws, a little finger that was webbed, the feet like frog's feet. Then a voice saying to me, they showed me this, so I won't be afraid. And I asked mentally, she said, why are you doing this? And the answer was, because you have our DNA. She said, I blacked out and awoke with my whole body vibrating. I still believed it to be a dream. 2 hours later, when I woke, my body felt strange and my feet felt like they were standing on air. There was none of the intense pain I felt while walking. The arch of my foot was normal, not flat, and all pain and inflammation was gone. And this is another healing by the cone beings that she experiences. And she said, the cone heads and my experience of healing with them, I think I was one of these beings in a past life. And here you're seeing images of the cone heads that have been found around the world, and these ones in Peru. And this is her healing experience that I will now just play for you.
I woke up staring right into the lower body of a small being. I raised my head and upper body from the bed and leaned my head into my right hand. Immediately I focused my eyes on places in the room and wondered what this being looked like. I left my body and went to those places in above and behind the being. I could see my body from above, felt so happy, and then I slowly lowered myself down into my body. When I was back and in control of my body, I leaned forward towards the being. He was still standing. healing me with his eyes shut, and I could see the soft glow from the fabric in his suit and every fiber in it.
So she's talking about the room having a green, yellow, white haze. His forehead was the beam, which made this 90-degree angle with his hands into her body. He was wearing a tight, light silvery blue, light bluish slim suit and boots of the same color, a buckle of clear glass, the shape of a bun, and with this yellow and green strokes rotating fast were the cause of the green-yellow light in the room. And she was able to leave her body and look at this from all perspectives and knew they were healing and transforming her body. She felt very happy. And here is her picture of it, her drawing of it, as you can see to the left of your screen. And what is important here is her healing abilities increased and assisted through her ET healing encounter with the cone-headed being. She never experienced any fear from any of her encounters. And she had visits from this being the whole following week with healing. She was receiving things that looked like green laser beams, green lines of different lengths like Morse code. And after this experience, her healing abilities reached a new level. And she said, and I think many people who are having experiences know this, that she began having problems with computers and electrical devices, interfering with the silica chip computers, for example, and she would try and control it. What was fascinating to me was during this time that I was gathering this information, another lady in Queensland, Heather Patterson, actually had sent me a picture of her interactions with the cone-headed being. And here is her drawing. You notice, again, the buckle with the green swirling images and some of the script that she's writing. I get so many people sending me scripts, hieroglyphs of different forms. This is one of them. And what was fascinating, as I say, this was seen by a lady in Queensland, and Dr. Olsen comes from Sweden. And when I sent the script to Dr. Olsen, there were certain parts of the script that she also recognized. And this is what I'm looking for. The whole time I'm looking for corroboration. Is this information just with one individual, or is this now many other people that are experiencing similar things? This is the way that we can start to get information on the multidimensional side of our experiences, but also trying to understand and decode what's going on. And I'm going to talk about children who decode this information as well as adults. Orbs are very much now part of the phenomena, I believe. And here is one that is a drawing by Dr. Lena Olsen. The family, she said that this blue sphere was the size of a football in the bedroom, just above her husband's head. And out of it came a small sphere. When she poked it, it felt like a membrane, which broke. An electric green phosphorus color spread down her arms. We both felt it. The orb continued to move over my body to my knees. The saucer-shaped object inside the orb was still spinning. And there's a really important side to this in terms of many of the orbs healing. And then she read about similar kinds of things happening in the where the Canadian government had observed such phenomena, and the UFO came out the orb and expanded to be a large UFO and disappeared. So again, it's able to work within a kind of quantum hologram way. So in terms of our reality, it appears different. And she speculated this was some kind of time travel device. This one was kindly given to me by Grant Cameron, because he's filmed this particularly, and he wrote it was the gentleman had a large tumor on the back of the neck. The orb caused the large tumor to disappear on a local experiencer. And this is the picture of the orb before it entered the body in the man's bedroom. This whole event was caught on camera. So the orbs are significant, and I think there's many things that we need to understand about them, although I'm going to show you a little bit more about the orbs in a minute. This was from a regression I did with a 15-year-old child in the UK who had experiences with his whole family, both his grandmother, his mother, and himself were having experiences. And I worked with him with hypnosis And when he was in the hypnosis, he was basically communicating with the ETs. And he's asking questions himself in that space. And this is what he's saying. Why me? Oh, he says, I chose to do it. I volunteered to come back to Earth. I chose to do this. And he said, the two greys, they're still with me and they tell me to stay on track. I've been here on Earth 27 times before. And he spoke about the grey beings arriving in his garden one day when he was, and he could see orbs as well as the grey beings. And he said, in the regression, I can see orbs, whitey gold and two smaller ones. They're here to make me feel warm. They're family. The big one is Great Nana, and the other one's Nana's dad, grandfather, and granddad's brother. They're here to make me feel comfortable, to reassure me. So I asked him how he knew what the orbs of light were, and John said he just knew. So I asked, why were they there with him? And John said, they've come with the greys to support me, to make me feel comfortable so I wouldn't be frightened. When the greys left, the orbs of light went into the spacecraft with them. They do not mean to frighten us. Now, this takes this to the non-physical side of understanding souls. What do souls look like? What do spirits look like? Can they be orbs of light? It seems so. Certainly, this is more of the evidence that has come to me that when we travel out of body, we can travel in a Merkaba or an orb of light, same difference. The near-death experience is crucial to many people who've had encounters, and it is very much part of many people's experience when they wake up and get, if you like, get activated. We can be activated by seeing a UFO, we can be activated through our encounters, we can be activated shamanically, we can be activated through a deep grief experience, or as Dr. Olson is, when she had a near-death experience after having extreme septicemia and the doctors thought she should die, and when she miraculously survived. This is how she described it. When I thought of my kids, I could scroll back and forth in a sort of tunnel with photographs of them. In this experience, every bit of color lifted from my body, and when it came to my heart and head, instantly all pain left, and everything went dark. I felt happy, loved, something I'd never felt before. I thought of my kids. I could stroll back and forth in a tunnel. The photos looked more separate and intense as I went into them, and I checked up on thoughts and feelings of the kids, and if they were doing okay. I could barely discern the night sky, the stars, and experienced an overwhelming feeling of love and belonging, and I was back, and then my brain blanked out, and I woke later with a terrible ache in my body, and I thought, oh no, I'm back, and started to cry. The doctors who witnessed this agreed it was a miraculous recovery. She said she was instantly healed from massive sepsis. Her organs were undamaged, which was medically impossible. The transformative side of this, and there is so much evidence now, so many books on the transformative side of having a near-death experience. Dr. Olson also experienced this in high strangeness. She started to perceive auras, energies around people, able to see through solid objects, was knowing when someone was lying, encountered spirits and shared messages. The cherished encounters are with the extraterrestrials, both as visitors, teachers, and healers. This is really significant, and this is what the surveys with Free is actually showing us. She also found that she was given healing techniques from her non-visible friends, taught quantum healing through her encounters, and how it reaches problems at the atomic level. She was taught how to enhance and direct energy, how to leave her body to go into the client's body and feel the problem. She does the same thing to connect to their past lives or problems in the present that can cause imbalances leading to the problem. She said, I correct and balance these imbalanced energies, and I reload them with higher frequencies. Thus, they're helped on an energy level. This is proven to halt cancers, and if the treatment ceases before it's cured, then the cancer grows back. So she said they need to be cured. They have to also be fully balanced. She can manipulate matter, such as open a tight lid if she focuses energy outside her body to reach the atoms and elevate them so she can move the lid. I'm now going to take you to another lady who I want to show you. There are two important aspects of this in terms of expressions, and this is what I feel has been missing so much in looking and understanding what encounters is all about, whether it's contactees. This is the important part of this, is the impact of these encounters and how people change from them. This is what this lady was told, Emma Strong. She is in the US. She was only 22% humanoid. The rest is a form of light energy. When I speak star languages, she said, I feel I'm giving directives to angels. Every time I take a video from my phone, it records spacecraft. I can be gone for hours. I've woken up with tree material in my hair. I've not left the house since I washed it. I believed I'm traveling at night to different dimensions, times, and my actual physical body goes, not just my soul. In 2009, I would waken once or twice between 1 and 3 a.m. This is so common. And if someone grabbed me and shook me, I only describe it as a rush of adrenaline, an electric current going through my body, and I once woke myself up speaking another language. Many clients and people contacting me have told me that they have either spoken languages in their sleep, their partners witnessed this, it's been recorded, but also so do the children. This is Emma Strong speaking a language, and look and see the orbs that dance around as she's speaking the language. And I will actually give you, hold on, a little bit of this.
Here we're going to speak just a little bit about, I'm going to take in the language this morning. Oh, Chanda, also the teaching, and the rotation. Also, yeah, oh, my God, to great pitches and because and we are sure for here. On the little bit of Russia, on the little bit of Kissing and Basil pitching and Kushik and Basil pitching, the rest of the rest of the record, yes, you laboratory. You go eat a shoe. Also, Atapala teacher, Akusia, Jototation, Otopalachi, Ukapataki, Marakushi, and Basil pitching. And that high, yo, Hashu, I'm not totally Atasapake, Asatapia, Ashia, Monoroshisha, Kuchitarapo, Akasa, Atatushi, and a man at the bar, you are to do it. And they did not okay. I think episode of the day, you have to the way. Do it, Euro Derbatata, at the Derbatata, the new way as it put that element of Chia, Okama soy, at the Shiana, no Yatachu, after the episode of Kitchen and never teach the teacher or Yana, do Akata Sote, Asakaramenda, after the episode of Kitchen, after the Genie Manager.
That will give you some idea of the activity with the orbs as Emma is actually speaking one of the light languages or star languages. And this to me is really significant. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I've come to understand some of that through my research and also the decoding that's going on. But what is important about the languages, it's a frequency. And what we already have, discussed is that DNA is activated and it's changed by human language. So what is star language doing to our DNA? What is that frequency doing to us energetically? One of the other important things here is the scripts that many of my, those contacting me find themselves writing. The images on the left are one from Emma Strong, and she's going to describe to you about how she does these scripts that come through when she's when she's tapping into that source. And I want you to again see she describes it really, really well.
I'm going to try to hold this camera like this, but it'll be shaking and moving, but I don't know how else to get the whole picture in. But this is me writing, and I don't meditate or anything, it just comes in.
I have many, many copies of similar types of script. Some like this, some like hieroglyphs, and some of it looks very similar to some kinds of Chinese or Arabic writing as well. So some of it may very well be from ancient ways of writing that we're tapping into. But one of the fascinating things with some of these scripts is that I've been told, and I've found through regressions, that on the craft, some of the individuals learn this script and use it because it's from their origins. It's from where they're from. And these are, the interesting thing with this is that they, I'm told that what you're seeing is only two-dimensional, whereas much of these symbols or script actually are compressed files of information that you're absorbing.
And I turn it over just to give my hand more support, so I write in this direction.
I've had a 7-year-old child look at my...
I don't think it matters to them where it stops and where it ends, because like I said, like I've told before, it tends to... it goes someplace once I get it down on paper, and I don't think it matters if I tear up the paper. Apparently the writing or what is said in the writing's always going to be. It just is, and it's already recorded. It's almost sort of backhand, and it sort of has changed over the years. But that's the writing. See, it more or less goes that way or that way. And they put a lot of dots. For some reason, I'm dotting things in there, and I'm not quite sure why that is, unless there's extra emphasis, or it's like, I don't know, that it could be a period at the end of the sentence. But anyway, that's my writing. And I do have to hold the pen sometimes more or less. It's easiest to hold it like this because I have more. If I were to write like this, you have to move like this, and that's not how they're grabbing it. They're wanting to use my whole, a lot more of this rather than this sort of thing. And it gives me better control because it seems like they grab the pen and it just is taking control of. But I can't tell if it's like perhaps an outside source or if it's actually just me, my higher self, doing it.
Very, very important there that the script that you're seeing is not only many people are expressing their encounters that way, but also I've had a 7-year-old that with one of those scripts that she was able not only to translate it for me in the language, but when I said to her, you know, can you also tell me what it is in English? She was able to do that, but she was also able to say it in the language that it's meant to be as well. So she did both. She was able to speak in the ET language and then translate it for me. And it was a script very, very similar to that was in my book, Awakening. So this is, again, what I'm reminding you of, that DNA is not just responsible for the construction of our body, but as data storage, which in communication follows the same rules as language. It just requires the right frequencies to be reprogrammed. This is another lady that's done a great deal of this kind of script. Deborah Lapatina speaks and writes star languages. Many of the glyphs, this physicist says many of the glyphs are actually formulas on their way to forming matter. So this brings it into the holographic understanding of the quantum reality. Like formulas and cosmic language transmission, she explains, it's hard for me not to sing them, as singing the frequencies are an integral part of the transmission. So there we're talking about frequency again. The languages carry billions of information in a bridge format. Human language is linear. Speaking, singing, light language feels spiral and wave-like. Sensation of being awash with layers of knowing that is understood but cannot be articulated in a linear word string. Advanced beings use telepathy or direct thought transference. And here's just a little example of Deborah's language. That's just one example. I've got many examples. Some of them are almost identical. And what I've discovered is that when I play some of these languages in my presentations, there's people in the audience that are affected by them. Some of them recognize them and become really emotional. I had a nurse who actually came up to me after listening to one of the languages, and she found herself writing script directly after hearing the language. So there is no doubt that they affect people on a multidimensional level. This is an upgrade of that from the scripts of change. Deborah says, I have shifted in her consciousness. This is another part of one of the pictograms that she's drawn. She said it's now really fast, fluid writing, and notice she's saying a lot of dots. Often I'm told to go back and add more dots and even very long, thin, flowing lines. I've been experiencing sadness as the light codes become script-like, almost like scribbling, and moving away from more artistic expression. However, I feel this has occurred with my personal expansion in consciousness and possibly receiving information that requires being closer to not being expressed in any style of human term writing. It's like streams of frequencies in condensed, smaller expressions in a barely recognizable 3D format perception. So she's seeing that this is an accelerated shift from human patterning. It's been intense, she said, and others are experiencing the same. She titles this one Stabilizer, as she was shown, 3 significant patterns created a triad of blockage that kept me bound in karma and manipulation. So she said, really, this is changing her conditioning and programming to open up to more of her multidimensional self. But now I'm going to take you into an area that I find extremely exciting, because there are children now being born, and there have been over the last 10 or 20 years. There are, I call the upgrades, the new human. They're demonstrating our future potential and of our extraterrestrial creators. Dr. Roger Lear, who wrote The Aliens and the Scalpel, not only did he take out implants that he found in individuals and filmed them, he also told me and was convinced. He said, I have come to the conclusion that not only are star children amongst us, but the rapid advancement of the human species is due to alien intervention in our bodies and minds. And he had done various research over 40 years in developmental stages in children, and he was noticing there was a distinct change in acceleration in developmental patterns, such as the age of walking, talking, etc. And these had accelerated anything from 60 to 80%. So the new human, born with full awareness into terrestrial consciousness. And this, to me, is the exciting thing here. The conscious awareness of these new babies is increasing to override the dominant conditioning and programming that occurs from birth with these new children. The DNA of the new human has tenfold the amount of information. Things such as telepathy, manipulation of time and space, and nonverbal communication are all conscious abilities and is natural. Learning skills and abilities are more advanced. Their molecular structure allows the cells of the body to vibrate faster. Everything is accelerated, including the immune systems. And I was very heartened, finally, to meet 2 molecular biologists who are basically saying the same thing. Dr. William Brown, some years after Tracy Taylor, the experiencer, that commented on the new children in the way that she has done. And this is what he's saying. I believe genetic modification is recurring right now in utero. They're actually producing new humans. Their new genetic architecture allows them to see the world in a multidimensional fashion. I believe research would show dormant genetic regions are being integrated into the biological systems occurring in all of us to produce expanded awareness. The exponential increase in ADD, autistic indigo children. Their brains work faster. I believe they already know what they're being taught. The intrinsic understanding of knowledge and information operates at biomolecular level. It's transgenerational information. It is encoded within the atomic structure of the DNA molecule and can be accessed more efficiently to produce savant-like characteristics. And this is what I'm discovering too. The modification of the DNA is more like remodeling of the genome to make dormant regions accessible again. And there are many ways this is occurring, I believe, through the scripts, through the languages, through artwork, through music. There are many different ways that we're being activated. The hybrids are altogether a new species of human. And here we've got Dr. Lena Olson, who's calling them the letter people. The letter people, she says, bring different multidimensional skills to humanity. And she's saying exactly the same thing. Programs such as ADD, ADHD, Asperger's are letter people. I do not believe these are broken genes, but instead offering a new multidimensional skills to prevent limited reprogramming of a third dimensional reality. So by being different, they are harder to program and condition into our outmoded 3D reality. It's not so simple as foreign DNA. It's a combination of genetically improved bodies in combination with souls from different places in our universe, incarnating in these improved bodies. The souls have different frequencies, vibrations, depending on the evolutionary status, and that plays a role in activation of the DNA in that particular body. I believe we also have to take into account the collective soul of Homo sapiens. And this is some of the differences that she's already tested for. Above normal sensory cells for pressure in the skin. She can hear above and below the normal range. She's aware of minute differences in shades of colours than normal. Taste and smell are enhanced. She's sensitive to all frequencies and would feel overwhelmed at times by sensory overload. Sensitivity to radioactive radiation. Energy fields and energies beaming out of angry people, as well as love and happiness. And she said, if that we can learn to focus and control our own energy field, we would be less prone to get ill from our surroundings. We can use our own self-healing abilities. And this is some of the information for those that want to know and understand more of what's going on and how you can change your diet to help if you've got children with ADHD or any of these other programs. She observed calculated levels of acetylcholine and dopamine in the brain that's higher in letter people. Acetylcholine is formed by choline in the vitamin B family, and letter people need more choline, but also other vitamin B family members because they use more of it. So that's the simplicity behind the cure for letter people. She said that the effect comes in a few days after the first intake, and if you stop taking the supplements, the first signs of imbalance, ADHD and so on, can be noticed after a few days, depending on the stress you're exposed to. There is more of this information that I will be writing about in my book, The New Human. One of the lovely ways of understanding his experience of being ADHD is Neil Gold. He's a wonderful researcher, lives in Hong Kong, and wrote the book, Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind. And really, Neil gave me a clue to what may be going on and why so many of our children now are different and why they're being born to those with encounters and they have such programs such as ADHD or Asperger's or certain types of autism, for example. Why would these intelligences produce or be part of this kind of shift in agenda? What does it mean? There must be a reason behind it. And this is how he understands his ADHD. And I think it says it all. He calls it always dialed into higher dimensions. And in his book, he explains that his internet browser can browse into chaos, be it here on Earth or in the multiverse. I can perceive hidden layers of order and make sense of it. So this is what the ADHD child is doing. ADHD, I'm not limited to the square template of the universe. I'm wired into a multi-dimensional universe. And this, I believe, is what is behind the new programs. They are deliberately created in a way that they are not trapped or conditioned into the 3D inaccurate reality that most of us get conditioned into. It makes it harder for them to be programmed. And sadly, what are we doing is we are dosing them up and shutting them down so that we can program them into this very 3D limited reality. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit in the time that I have left because I've got a great deal I'd like to cover, but there is so much, and I'm trying to give you a taster of what the children are saying to me. And this is families with children that have written to me, explaining about what their children have been saying to them. And I've talked to a lot of these children, either on a one-to-one or over Skype, or the parents have told me their stories. And what I'm finding is with the children that before they get too conditioned and too programmed, are telling me their understanding. And some of this is absolutely profound. Some of these children are, you know, under 10, and they're coming up with concepts that there's no way they have of knowing in normal society or in normal education. They're explaining consciously many of their past life experiences, where they're from. And remember that they don't watch talk shows, they don't read books on this. This is coming with a clarity and a purity that, you know, the older generations of experience have had conditioned out of them. I talked to a father in the UK with his 10-year-old son, who told me quite comfortably that his origin was through a portal in the sun. So many of these children are born these days, Tracy says, that have memories intact from their previous existence on board craft as extraterrestrials. They are kept on track by continuing their interaction with their cosmic family while they're in human form. And I'm going to mention a little bit about some of the children that know and recall going on spacecraft to other planets, to the moon, to Mars, and what they say about it, and what they understand of their mission here, how they understand their education on board craft and other planets with the beings they interact with, that they may either call, they may call them ETs, they may call them their friends or their spirit guides. One little girl calls them her angels, another one calls them the fairies. And what we're seeing here, and what I've tried to do as much as possible, is corroborate, is this a possibility? And there seems to suggest that the sun could indeed be a portal. You're seeing here images here and here of what appear to be things coming out of the sun that appear to be craft of some kind. Many, many images of this. If you go onto various websites, you can see this for yourself. Another one, this is past life recall. A 5-year-old Peter knew as much as there was to know on Andromeda because he said he was from there. Again, Peter is ADHD. His father, Edward, is an engineer. He has 2 children. His partner has 2 children. They've seen many craft and had encounters. Both children, daughter who's 7 and son who's 12, have conscious recall with multidimensional awareness and past life recall. Peter, the son, says, I can do great things. Something amazing happened before I died. We left something on the moon to help Earth. I was sent to help. And this image here that you're seeing is one of the anomalies on the moon. Everyone needs to go and have a look at the anomalies on both the moon and Mars to see for themselves what they make of it. Moon Rising is a documentary that shows you incredible images of the different things, anomalies on the moon. It's up to you whether or not that interests you. The father researched anomalies on the moon, and it suggested there was a machine located there which worked with consciousness, both biological and mechanical. So Edward, the father, asked his son if this was something he knew about and was accurate. And his son immediately said yes. Was this certitude from his past life recall? He doesn't know. So many children that I've spoken to under 10 have mentioned the moon is occupied and there is advanced technology there from other civilizations. And here is something, if you want to go into the whistleblower material, Sergeant Carl Wolf worked with Tactical Air Command, also talked about what has been hidden from us. There's something big on the moon. While working at the NSA facility, he witnessed photographs taken by Lunar Orbiter on the moon that showed clearly detailed artificial structures of domes, mushroom-shaped buildings and towers. These photos were taken prior to the Apollo landing in 1969, and he said, I remember going home and naively thinking, but I can't wait to hear about this on the evening news. And here it is more than 30 years later, and he was hoping to hear about it from that time. So we know there is much that you're not told, and this is one of them. This is a young man who's 9 years old. I spoke to him over Skype with his father. The father was speaking to me about his experiences, and the son said, Dad, can I speak to Mary? And I found this quite interesting that he wanted to speak to me. So I said, why is it that you want to speak to me? And he said to me, well, it's because of your frequency, which took me aback, I might say. But he started to tell me about not only his past life, but why he's here. He said, my past life was on Orion. I was a light physicist working on time travel technology. And he was very frustrated with the scientists on the planet now. He said many of them really are quite primitive, their understanding. He said, you know, they would not understand the physics that I work with. The closest to my understanding, he said, is the work of Nikola Tesla. Peter, the 12-year-old with ADHD, conscious past life recall, told his parents, I come from Andromeda. He said, I had a mother with blue skin. The language was thought forms with telepathy. The father said that he's even asked me to explain what I was doing at work because he couldn't understand the computer code I was writing at the time. What he was saying to his father was that when his father was at work working on the computer, he could see through his father's eyes what his father was actually doing. And he found that quite scary sometimes. As he said, he can read people's minds and it can be scary, and so can see through people's eyes. He sees UFOs and he acts like it's all normal. This is a young boy of, again, a letter person, Asperger's stroke ADHD, and Arthur's music is about shifting our DNA. Now, what's fascinating about this is a young boy in Western Australia. His mother wrote to me saying he's 11 years old. He has interactions with different beings. This image is one of the beings that he said is very loving and actually did some healing on him, took him onto the craft. And he said that when he plays the piano, there are certain, he feels the energy of these beings, and that he knows, in fact, that he's going to play something with them. And he knew the titles before he played them. So he actually is aware that they're working with him to play the piano and play certain pieces. And he has names of those pieces. And he says he knows the difference because when he normally plays the piano, after about 3 minutes, his hands get tired. But when he does this, he can play for 12 minutes and not feel tired, but he gets very drowsy afterwards. And he said, these songs I need to give to people to wake them up. And these are the titles of some of the ones that he's played, his mother has recorded. One of them is called Decoding Human DNA. Another one is really interesting, is Going Within Yourself. And another one, Arrival. Now, I was in correspondence with another lady who lives in the US. She's a Japanese musician who lives in California, who wrote to me about 18 months ago. And this is identical to the type of experience she had as a child. And she commented on some of the tracks that I sent her. And her name is Juliana Oka. She has written a book on her experiences, which I'll show you next, One Life, Many Worlds. And she said this about the music. I believe Arthur is being contacted by aliens or master musical spirits. It's amazing composition. It's genius. I liked it very much. The first one is combined with a few bars of Beethoven's music. My alien experiences happened also in childhood and went far beyond. When I was overtaken by the entity, I felt something similar to what he's saying. I received amazing power, but I was left drained and crashed. As a result, I couldn't go to school, which is exactly the way Arthur felt after these experiences. This is Juliana Oka. She's spoken in a number of different UFO conferences and what have you. Also, her artwork is brought through in the same way as the music. And she's written this book, One Life, Many Worlds, where she speaks about her multidimensional experiences that started in post-war Japan and how ultimately she was brought into playing and tapping into that music and also the artwork. So bringing in through the frequencies through music and art, which I think is brilliant. Here she is, that happened in childhood and went far beyond and overtaken by the energy. And I felt something similar to what Arthur's saying. It was amazing power, and I was drained and crashed afterwards like he is. Definitely Arthur is contacted by aliens or master musical spirits. Amazing composition, genius. I like the music a lot. There's a little boy here, and I'm keeping an eye on the time here, that believes he can communicate through solid objects, including a meteorite. And interestingly, recently I've talked to someone who has out-of-body experiences that says that you can communicate with anything, including plants as well as animals, and about any material, any object other than plastic. And this is what the little 8-year-old was saying. Rocks seem like they're actually living. This little meteor, he said they do not cough or breathe like we do, but they communicate through your mind. They can communicate by putting your finger on it, and you can hear it talking in your head like it's your own voice, but it's really the rock. They have feelings. This rock told me it was crashing to earth. People were scared and it made it sad, but it's happy in water. It told me where it crashed, which was London. It also had likings and it likes space. Now, this is he's now 10, and he wasn't sure how he could communicate with it, but he also communicates with spirits, has a heightened sense of smell, and is empathic and feels other people's emotions. So we've really got to look at our conditioning and how we understand how we communicate with a holographic nature of who we are. And also crystals, of course, take us into that. This is what Dr. Olson was taught. She uses crystals in her healing, and she said, I was taught how to feel the crystals and the stones I sometimes use, and I teach others in my workshops. I use crystals and their vibrations when you need to do self-healing. They have an impact. And one of the wonderful ways of showing how this works is Dr. Harry Oldfield's information. He has shown entities coming out of crystals through his PIP technologies, and these are contrast interference photography. Through software, he can actually show what's happening with the healers and the crystals using pulsed high-frequency electromagnetic stimulation of crystals to rebalance the human energy field. We've really got to let go of our 3D programming that says this isn't possible. Healing techniques from non-visible friends. Here's another one. Dr. Olson's talking about quantum healing through her encounters and how it reaches problems at atomic level. She was taught how to leave her body and go into the client's body, feel the problem. Many of those with encounters know they can do this. I can do the same thing, she says, to connect to their past lives or problems in their present. I correct any imbalanced energies, reload them with higher frequencies. Thus, they're helped on an energy level. So again, we've got to learn that we can do so much more. This 9-year-old child talks to water to heal it with a star language. And she says, I'm here to help my family wake up. Everyone is sleeping. And her mother said she speaks 3 star languages and knows where these languages are from. And she talks to water to heal it. And here are 2 of her so-called friends. Her blue guide is a Manoko, and her male guide, which is the green ET. This is one of the scripts that she writes. And she's also saying parents have to listen. Something will happen in the next 5 years to this planet. And she's talking between the framework of 2012 and 2017. And of course, we know that water can be influenced by sound, by frequency, by prayer, by music. As Dr. Emoto has shown us in his books, how we can reprogram water. One of his books, of course, is Messages in Water, that he was well known for, as you see him here. And of course, Dr. Olson explains that she's got no problem with believing this. The spiral formations she's been working with in water are loading energy back into water, helps healing, recharging, strengthening the energy field. Whatever it's pointed at could be a bliss for humanity. Healing works on a cellular level, whether you believe it or not. The healing from my hands affected the protein binding to gene P53, which plays a role in turning genes on and off. So there is the science behind it, and very, very important. She's even created her own technology with World Water, which is another way of loading us with water that is actually having the programs to help us. And of course, what's important is that we're 50 to 75% water. So what we're seeing is happening to water is also happening to us. If human language and frequencies can alter both DNA and water, what effect could star languages, frequencies have on the human body and human DNA? It should be borne in mind that the nature of extraterrestrial communication, in a majority of instances, star visitors communicate with humans by telepathic transfer of words and speech. Everything's made up of the same matter, resonating at different harmonics. So the ETs are able to communicate with us, directing thought on subatomic levels, so activate the subconscious. These symbols are meant to communicate the nature of the macrocosm. This is a 7-year-old decoding Tracy Taylor's drawings. Many of you will see those, her story in my book, Awakening. What she did was just show these drawings to her children. One was 7, one was 4. Both said they come from the aliens. But the 7-year-old expanded on that, and he said they contain information about aliens. Images of harvesters of energy, machines that harvest the sun's energy. There are different types. The other pictures contain information about the aliens. One is about the 7 who will be coming. There are eagle people and cat and lion people. They have ancient messages, was what this 7-year-old said. And he continued. I honestly wish he was making this up, Mary. She got quite confronted by the mother and her son she asked him about the pyramids in Tracy's drawings. That's how the aliens will come. That's how they'll land and arrive. It's a teleportation machine. The big pyramid isn't the only ones. There are others. They will come at the pyramids and fly over the ground to the South Pole, shoot up to the North Pole by way of a teleporter, and fly down to the pyramids again. He made hand motions to show how this would happen from pole to pole. And the mother asked, when you say others, do you mean other pyramids? He said, I mean teleport places on every continent, places all over the world. So there are other types of teleportation places, she said, other than the pyramid of Khufu. Yes, the side of hills, lots of hills, hundreds of them around the world. And it's actually a place where the aliens do science there. She said, I stopped asking questions. I needed to digest it. He started to scare me again. Her son has dyslexia and says he sees the information in his mind. Here we have someone who is corroborating that. Astrophysicist Kim Thorne claims there are interdimensional wormhole portals above the Earth near Alaska and Antarctica. So again, we have corroboration from various other sources, and he says the wormholes can be used for instantaneous movement in space and one-time travel. He also concluded that near to Earth, there's an entrance to a wormhole leading to the star Vega, for example. This is in a documentary of the Third Reich, Operation UFO, that was in 2006. Here we have a space school on Mars. We don't learn anything we learn on Mars, on Earth, she said, the 7-year-old. This is the drawing of her going, there's Earth, going off to Mars, and said that Mars is a desert. The aliens fed her and were nice. They spoke telepathically. She learned paranormal skills. She saw babies in a crib and aliens at various stages. She interacted with a teenage alien in the school and learned most from her. She returned, the aliens cloaked, she said, when she returned to Earth, aliens cloaked their craft so we couldn't see them. She said she was levitated out of bed to a spaceship with 3 legs. There are grey aliens and some are small and some are tall. On Mars, I learned to look through walls. I can still do this at times. I don't learn anything we learn here on Earth. I finished magic school. It's mostly science. I learned about time, space, gravity. Time controls everything. Time controls all. And this is not the only young girl that's talked about going on spacecraft to Mars. This is another picture of the being that she says stands near a dome. Here's her picture of a dome on Mars. These are domes on Mars that were taken, and if you want to look those up, the mysterious dome taken on Mars rover, for example. She also sees, this is the same one as her mother has drawn. This manted being, the little girl saw the drawing and said, that's the one, this is this one here. The alien is important to the alien community because he's very different to the grey aliens. The grey aliens don't need clothes because of their species of aliens. The green alien is rare, it doesn't talk at all. The grey ones talk all the time. And the domes can be black or white. So there is her description and her understanding of being taken to Mars. And here is another 5-year-old, her drawings going on spacecraft, and this is one of the ETs. This is what she calls her half girl, half special friend. And she said her body's special friend. The color of her hair is brown. She has thin hair, and there's a little boy jumping up and down. And she said that there's a boy, a special friend, who walks through the window. It doesn't matter if the window is open or closed. He comes in when we're in our bunk beds. And the mother says, why did he come to see you? And she said, he's telling me about your baby. It's a baby boy that will come in your tummy soon. He, the being, comes at night. He's telling me all about outer space. She went on to say, I woke up in the night and thought I heard footsteps. I went back to sleep and I thought it was Mum and Dad. I saw a white foot and said, don't be afraid. I'm a nice person. Sorry I scared you. So it wouldn't be afraid of me. She was talking about the half-girl special friend, and she was saying that her special friend was a hybrid. Her hair on her head is not as thick as hers. Her home is cold and everyone is leaving. and Mars is their home. And we have a young boy here that said his past life was on Mars. And I used to build interstellar craft, and I asked him if he'd been given the information on how to build interstellar craft, and he said no, this was from my past life. I actually still remember it. And these are some of the anomalies on Mars which show that there were ancient civilizations, and many of you can go up on the internet and check that out. Bariska was another young boy that said that he used to come from Mars and he used to visit Lemuria on the planet Earth, and that was knowledge under the pyramids, and the Lemurians were 9 meters tall. He used to fly from Mars to Earth, and he had friends in Lemuria, and he spoke about his life on Mars and other planets on Project Camelot, and there's lots of information on Bariska. So here's another one from Russia that's speaking about the same thing. Multidimensional conscious awareness, awakening to our cosmic heritage, pre-birth, past life recall, sense of mission, connection to other star systems, awareness of being taught multidimensional skills, connection to all sentience, both animal, plants, as well as humans, precognition and clairvoyance, telepathy, thought influencing, healing abilities, resonance to truth, higher frequencies, and awareness of manipulation of reality, such as the covert agencies on this planet. These are what the children know about. These are the new generations of human. The mantid are my family, as one 8-year-old told me. He'll go back into his mantid family when he dies. I saw many other children on the spaceship. Some were not human, a 7-year-old. I'm an ambassador from Taurus. I come as an ecological engineer as a 17-year-old. People built the Sphinx to tell people in the future they, the extraterrestrials, are real. The ordinary people were humans. The rulers were not human, but cat-like beings. An 8-year-old. School programs are like a virus. We're infected with this virus and it extinguishes our light. She's explaining how going to conventional schools conditions and programs us out of awareness. There are special schools for children like us on the ocean floor, underground bases, and off-planet. A 9-year-old aware that these children are being manipulated in underground bases. There are lots of moons that are artificial, like around Saturn and Jupiter, and some people are affected by them. These are some of the statements. So here we've got, and I realize I'm going to need to complete this very shortly. We have come to help. There's a race of beings on the planet increasing in number through visually, physically indistinguishable to most humans. They're the bringers of light. They're here to guide the awakening of terrestrial consciousness. The children and young people being born have conscious recall of where they're from, deep and profound understanding of who they are, their previous star origins. They do not need governments to tell them we're not alone in the universe. They already know we're not. They know the planet is in dire shape, both ecologically and spiritually. They know we're being lied to and manipulated. They know we're being educated and programmed into a limited and limiting reality. They know about covert technologies which control the public and its fear-based mindset. They're aware of their abilities. They know that many species are visiting our planet, and the new human is here to wake humanity up. And here we have Tesla saying, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than all the previous centuries of existence. To understand the true nature of the universe, one must think of energy, frequency, and vibration. And Nikola Tesla, by the way, was autistic. Just to add that little piece, I'm afraid we won't have time for that. But here we have it. We've got the new human and the consciousness shift. Peter explained to his father, humanity's been at this point 3 times, but we've been knocked off course. This time, he says, in terms of humanity's evolution, there's a 95% chance we will make it, and possibly 100% chance we're headed up to a higher level. He said it's due to the shift that's affecting everyone. It's the starseeds and indigos of the planet like us. Gaia cherishes us, he says, because we can help the vibration of the planet far more than any others. And as this 8-year-old said to her grandma, you don't have to worry, Nana, they're guiding us home. And this is really all we need to know. And that's the end of my presentation. There is a CERN and the details about a CERN, and free. If anyone wants to do the surveys, you'll see free there and the details of that. I'm coming to LA. I'm speaking for Zero on the 1st of October to advertise that we have got to experience a Liberation Day. It's time. It's time for us now to stand up and say, you know what, this is my reality. I can see the ET elephant. And really, this is now encouraging everyone globally to actually stand up and say, this is my reality. This is my truth. And disclosure comes from us. Thank you very much.